From the CyberHub bunker and studio, you're tuning in to the CyberHub Podcast. And now for your host and CISO, James Azar.
Good morning, security gang. Welcome to another episode of the CyberHub Podcast, Thursday, June 19th, 2025. And for those wondering, the show is not on my X page today. I've been suspended for a debate I was trying to have with the Ayatollah Khamenei of Iran. Apparently telling him to go hide in his bomb shelter is offensive to the poor Iranian little dude dictator there. And X decided that they should suspend me for the day. So I am suspended off of X this morning, but it's for a good reason. So we'll just kind of, for those wondering who are tuning in to the podcast page and are asking in the comments, why is it not there? It's because X decided to suspend my account. So with that being said, we've got a packed show for all of y'all this morning. Salt Typhoon back and at it. So we're going to get in everything going on in the telecom sector, as well as a bunch of data breaches and the escalation of the Israel-Iran cyber warfare. We'll get into all of that on this morning's show, as well as some vulnerabilities you need to pay attention to before you head out for the weekend. Join me for a coffee cup cheers. I've got my double espresso this morning. Coffee cup cheers, y'all. CyberHubPodcast.com. Find all the latest there. So China's Salt Typhoon now Viasat is now confirming that they're the latest victim of Salt Typhoon's cyber espionage. For those who don't know Salt Typhoon is responsible for what likely will be considered one of the most damaging cybersecurity breaches in American history once it comes out. Not everything about the breach is public yet. There's still an ongoing investigation that started last year, just around September or October, where multiple telecom providers were all breached. Viasat, for that matter, are satellite broadband services that's used worldwide in aviation, military, energy, maritime, and even enterprise customers. They were telling last month, they told shareholders that 189,000 broadband subscribers just in the United States alone. The company is now coming forward saying they discovered the Salt Typhoon breach earlier this year and have been working with federal authorities to investigate the attack. Now, this isn't the first time this happened for Viasat. So Viasat were a victim of a Russian cybersecurity attack in February of 2022 at the onset of the Russia-Ukraine war, when Russia invaded Ukraine. They used data wiper malware roughly 1 hour before Russia invaded Ukraine. So the cyber attack impacted tens of thousands of customers in Ukraine and Europe, and it really did set off communications there, which really disrupted the Ukrainian from being able to handle the early onslaught attack by the Russians. And this was part of that cyber attack. And if we go back to 2022, to the first episode we did back then, I did clearly say that there was a cyber attack before the actual ground incursion that Russia did into Ukraine. And so there's that there as well. The FBI insisted confirming that Salt Typhoon had breached multiple telecom providers like AT&T, Verizon, Lumen, Charter Communication, Consolidated Communication, and Windstream, as well as other telecom in over a dozen countries. So China continues its malice there around telecom, showing they're not really a good global citizen. And so this attack now just further shows the need for securing telecom, the need for having backup telecom, because the idea that satellite is a backup, I don't know that works. Swiss procurement service provider Chain IQ is behind the cyber attack on UBS. So according to Chain IQ, 19 other companies, including UBS, who we talked about on the show yesterday, were the target of the attack that had never before been seen on a global scale. No, maybe Chain IQ lives under a rock. Maybe. There was never such type of attack on a global scale. Never, ever. Unique. I don't know who these people are, but here's the deal. Cyber attacks are cyber attacks. There's either compromised credentials or there's a vulnerability. And unless something crazy happened, then you should publish it. Otherwise, that statement about your PR firm at Chain IQ, fire it, Fire whoever wrote it. Fire them. They need to learn a lesson. They're saying the incident was contained within 8 hours and 45 minutes by revoking the attacker's access to the affected environment. It took 8 hours and 45 minutes to revoke access, folks. Chain IQ said no customer bank data was compromised in the incident, but confirmed the attackers exfiltrated data containing employee business contact details of some of their clients, UBS and Picketed, as well as Manor and other real estate and construction services company in Plania, were all impacted by this. So again, we're seeing, supply chain cyber attacks continue without even missing a pace. Well, the tech firm Episource, who provides services to the healthcare industry, said the attackers stole nearly 5,418,866 people's information in documents filed with HHS. Episource, based in California, disclosed the filing with HHS that more than 5.4 million Americans had their information taken. The data stolen includes social security numbers, health insurance ID numbers, Medicaid and Medicare ID numbers, as well as some medical records covering doctors, diagnoses, test results, images, care, and treatment. Law enforcement was involved in the investigation, and the company said they were forced to turn off its computer systems in order to protect customers and their patients. Now, for those tuning in for the first time and watching, and you go, why do companies shut off their systems? It's simply so that the attack doesn't continue to move. The moment you do that, if you shut everything down, you contain it, you create essentially a sandbox, kind of a gated environment, a walled off environment. And then as you bring up the machines, you're containing the attack, and that way you're limiting the exposure of the attack. However, that's typically done as a precaution. Typically, when a ransomware is issued in your environment, once you've already become a victim, they've already exfiltrated the data. So what you're really shutting down is their ability to maybe stage a second or third attack within the same environment, and you wouldn't notice it, or where they may have extensively changed the baseline of your environment to keep persistence there as well. So those are things to consider here as well. The company said it's working with its customers to help them coordinate providing notice to everyone affected. Krispy Kreme is now confirming the ransomware resulted in a data breach. That cyber attack happened on December 11th, and the incident led to operational disruption. Play Ransomware Group took credit for the attack. The criminals claimed to have stolen 184 gigabytes worth of data, which they made public on their Tor-based leak site in December of 2024 after Krispy Kreme refused to pay the ransom. Good for them. The investigation determined that PII, like names, dates of birth, social security numbers, driver's license, and state ID numbers, financial account information, including some usernames and password, as well as payment card information, passport number, digital signatures, email addresses, passwords, biometric data, U.S. military ID number, medical and health information was all compromised. Geez, was all of that in one place for Krispy Kreme? Or did they just not really have good oversight? The company pointed out that a majority of the impacted individuals are current or former Krispy Kreme employees and members of their family. It's unclear how many individuals are impacted. It's worth noting that Krispy Kreme has roughly 20,000 employees. In addition, the Texas AG has been informed the company that nearly 7,000 Texans were impacted by the data breach, which exceeded the cost of $11 million, and they expect that to increase going into this year. So this happened in December. So let's move to the Israel-Iran war there, because it's really escalating also in terms of this morning or overnight for us here in the United States. A hospital in Israel was hit with a missile system in Beersheba. Tel Aviv and Ramat Gan both absorbed a direct hit, and we're praying for our friends in Israel as the indiscriminate firing on civilians continues from the regime in Iran. So in that aspect, the kinetic warfare still continues to go about. But in the cyber warfare side, Israel is really showing why Startup Nation really leads the way in cybersecurity companies. And also when they take off the gloves, holy moly. So Predatory Sparrow, which was responsible for kind of the initial attack on Iran, has now claimed to have stolen over $90 million in crypto from Novitex, Iran's largest crypto exchange, and burned the funds in a politically motivated cyber attack. The attack occurred on yesterday at 2:24 a.m. Eastern. This morning on June 19th, their technical teams detected signs of unauthorized access to a portion of our reporting infrastructure and hot wallet. Soon after that, Predatory Sparrow claimed responsibility for the attack through their Conject Durandi X account, promising to publish the company's source code and internal information stolen during the cyber attack. So that follows the bank SIPA cyber attack that did just that. And obviously, there's some cryptographic wallet addresses with embedded anti-Islamic Republic Guard Corps. Also, the Israelis took over Iranian TV yesterday, broadcasting messages urging the people to rise against the dictator and the Ayatollah and the IRGC that's been oppressing them for the last 46 years. And because of all of that, Iran decided that the best thing to do, shut off the internet. They're shutting off the internet for a bunch of reasons. One, there's a lot of chatter, a lot of people just, enjoying all the big talk from Iran, and yet within not even a week of the attack, Israel has complete superiority over their airspace. Israel's knocking down one thing after the other. Every launcher, when they launch a missile, that launcher gets exposed. Israel has air superiority to the point that they just completely attack that the moment it's launched. And in many cases, as they're preparing to launch some of those attacks, some of those missiles are being shot by the Israeli Air Force in the skies of Iran. So network data from internet watchdogs, NetBlogs, and Cloudflare confirmed a sharp drop in internet connectivity in Iran. They're saying near a total internet blackout. The measure follows a cyber attack by predatory Sparrow this week on Iranian banks, causing outages to account access, withdrawals, and card payments. It's not known whether or not they were able to even restore those systems yet, which again, collapsing the financial system of people related to the IRGC is weakening them as well. In addition to internet disruptions, landline telephone service has reportedly been restricted from making or receiving international calls, as they're worried that potentially Iranians are trying to call overseas, potentially to maybe Europe or other places, and giving out information they may not want to have there as well. So this war continues to escalate. We'll highlight all of this on our Saturday article with everything that's been happening in the cyber realm between Iran and Israel prior to this attack and post the start of this military conflict. The takeover of British Russian expert email accounts used a novel phishing tactic. So we talked about this earlier this week. So Russia apparently was able to hack the email account of a British expert on Russia, but what they used now has become readily available in terms for us to understand was a novel social engineering tactic that relied on the use of app-specific passwords to get around MFA, according to new research. Google, which detected the attack, which was likely executed by a Russian state-sponsored group, according to the report published yesterday by Google's threat intelligence groups. Citizens Lab, I'm not a fan of, a digital forensic research organization, really an activist organization, releasing its own report, finally, about something other than spyware, summarizing Google's findings and providing more detail. Keir Giles, who specializes in Russian information operations, was the target of attackers who took extensive measures to keep him from becoming suspicious by using a sophisticated but never before seen phishing tactic to break into several of his email accounts, according to Citizens Lab. Giles announced over the weekend that several of his email accounts had in fact been compromised. We talked about it here on the show. He was strict into generating and sharing ASPs for his accounts through well-executed social engineering methods, bypassing MFA. When applications don't support MFA or don't align with platform typical login procedures, users often create ASPs so the app can access accounts even when they are protected with MFA, noting Google's refer to them as less secure apps. Google has been phasing out less secure apps in workspaces while still letting users generate and subsequently remove such passwords on personal Gmail accounts, but that's the tactic they used. Now, if you haven't phased that out, you're likely going, it's once Russia uses something and once it becomes available and once we understand the tactics, the TTPs, other attackers will try to do the same. So just be mindful of the fact that this isn't some novel one-time tool. It'll likely now become more and more common. So if you are using this type of authentication ASP, you're likely going to become a target, and you're definitely going to want to change that there. But you just see the sophistication by which the Russians went about doing this with the care of someone who knew he was a target and yet still fell for it. CISO is warning federal agencies about attackers targeting a high-severity vulnerability in the Linux kernel's overlay FS subsystem that would allow them to gain root privileges. The local privilege escalation flaw is CVE 2023-0386, and it's caused by a Linux kernel improper ownership management weakness. It was patched in January of 2023, publicly disclosed 2 months later. They're now seeing proof of concept exploits, multiple of those shared on GitHub that started in May of 2023. Apparently now this is becoming a more active type of attack vector, which is why they're bringing it to everyone's attention. So you want to make sure if you do have this vulnerability in your environment, you get it patched. CISO and Atlassian on Wednesday announcing the rollout of patches for multiple high-severity vulnerabilities in their products, including many leading to a denial of service condition. Cisco released firmware updates for Meraki devices to resolve a high-severity flaw that would allow attackers to cause the AnyConnect VPN server on these products to restart, leading to a continuous denial of service condition. That's CVE 2025-20271. The company also rolled out fixes for a denial of service bug in the universal disk format. Processing for CLAM AV tracked to CVE 2025-20234. Atlassian announced patches for 5 different vulnerabilities and third-party dependencies in Bamboo, Bitbucket, Confluence, Crowd, and Jira. These include CVE 2025-22228 and 24970 and CVE 2024-38816 and CVE 2024-57699 and CVE 2025-31650. Each is its own CVE that all lead to a denial of service condition. So you want to make sure you get those patched up ASAP. Cloud Software Group is releasing a security bulletin warning customers of 2 newly identified vulnerabilities in Citrix NetScaler ADC and Gateway. CVE 2025-5349 and 5777 affects both the NetScaler ADC and Gateway. They've been CVE 5349ers classified as an improper access control issue that affects the NetScaler management interface, and CVE 2025-5777 results from insufficient input and validation that leads to a memory overread condition, and it's only exploitable if the NetScaler is configured as a gateway, such as through VPN virtual servers. The affected versions are any versions before 14.1 and 13.1 before 13.15832 and 14.14356, as well as the FIPS builds there as well. So you want to make sure you get those patched up. And in Good Guys Prevail, a Ukrainian national notorious operator of the Ryuk ransomware has been extradited to the United States from Kiev. The 33-year-old foreign man was arrested in his home in Kiev at the request of the FBI, and he was extradited to the United States yesterday. Ukrainian cyber police, the national police, and international law enforcement partner began investigating the ransomware operations, whose members carried out attacks against companies in France, Norway, Germany, the Netherlands, Canada, and the U.S. The operation led to the identification, seizure of devices, and arrest of multiple cyber criminals residing in Ukraine, further involvement in the Locker Goga, Megacortex, Hive, and Dharma ransomware families. Again, they're all affiliates. They were affiliates part, and now he gets to spend time in America's finest prison. I believe he's being charged in New York. Let me just double check that. I think it was New York. And so he'll get to enjoy Clinton Correctional Facilities in New York. So I hear it's a great place. Awesome accommodations. But there's that there for this operator. That's it for our show this morning. Tomorrow we'll have a summary available at cyberhubpodcast.com of all the latest stories. Of all the latest stories. So if you haven't subscribed, please make sure to do so. And then Saturday we'll have an entire article written out around the Israel-Iran cyber warfare, kind of covering that a little bit more extensively and kind of prepping you for what likely could happen if and when President Trump decides to get involved in the conflict. As of right now, the U.S. hasn't been involved outside of providing defensive capabilities to Israel and intel sharing between the two nations. But if President Trump decides to attack, some speculate that it will happen over the weekend, as late as Sunday, as he's given Iranians a chance for total surrender in the White House. By then is my guess. He's still trying to give diplomacy a chance one last time before he enacts the military, because once you do that, you don't control what happens after. And right now he does control the next steps, as long as we're not actively attacking Iran. So that's it for the show. We'll be back on Monday at 9 a.m. Eastern live. Until then, have a great rest of your day. And most importantly, y'all, stay cyber safe.
We love feedback, so make sure to connect with us on social media and subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast listening platform.